Welcome to Reframing the Questions. I'm so glad you're here, and I hope this feels like a safe place for thoughtful conversation. Hi, and welcome back to Reframing the Questions. This is the third video in our framework series, which is the theological framework we'll use to reframe and answer these really tough questions. This is all about elevating our shared values above our politics as Christians. And so we looked at those shared values earlier: equal value, equal dignity for every person, and grace. And so what does it mean? How can we model ourselves after Jesus in elevating those? Well, the first really cool observation from his ministry is that he called two people to follow him, to be his disciples, who were on completely opposite political sides. Most of us know about Matthew, that he was a tax collector, which meant in essence he worked for Rome. He was collecting taxes from his people to give them to their Roman occupiers. Basically, Rome was occupying Israel at that time. And the second disciple that's maybe not as well known is Simon, called Simon the Zealot, which means he was part of the Zealot political faction. They wanted to overthrow Rome at any price, including violent action. And so these two guys could not have been any more separate in their politics. And yet Jesus calls them both, because Jesus is initiating a new way of being in the world. Now, the Bible uses this word kingdom a lot, and I know different people have different thoughts about the word kingdom. When I use it, it means it's the rule and reign of God. It's a place where who God is and what he wants done is the standard. And that's actually what we're called as Christians. That's our first identity. There's verses in the Bible that call us citizens of the kingdom, meaning we are first and foremost belonging to God's rule and reign on earth. And that's where our allegiance is. And so that's what these two disciples must have had to grow in as they were following Jesus. We have no record of their conversations. We have no record of how that went. I mean, they would have been enemies, actually, probably. It could have been very hostile between them. But we have to believe, from what we see about the lives of the disciples after Jesus goes back to heaven, we have to believe they were growing. They were growing in their shared values. They were growing in their understanding of what it means to be a citizen of the kingdom, because they followed Jesus with their all. You know, they were with him day in and day out, and then they went out and spread the word after this. And most of the disciples were faced with intense persecution. So we know these two men were changed. We know they were valued equally by Jesus, regardless of their political affiliation. So that's a great starting point for us, because I see judgment on both sides, actually. I see Christians, I'll include myself in this, I have been guilty of this. We judge other Christians who view the political solution or their political convictions differently than ours. And actually, the problem with that is, first of all, we're not respecting the equal value in our fellow Christians. We're not giving them the benefit of the doubt. And secondly, we're missing an opportunity to really come together around shared values. Because, like we see in this example with the disciples, Jesus's ways are so much higher that people who follow him should not fit neatly into any political party. There's going to be pieces in every political party that align with God's heart, and there are going to be pieces that do not align with his heart. We saw this in the video about equal value and equal dignity, that when it comes to the political rhetoric, neither side can hold this theological truth that God values the woman and child equally. And so that breaks down already, and there's already a place we can have shared values as Christians to elevate the conversation. A second example from scripture is in Matthew, and the Pharisees come to Jesus again, trying to trap him. The scripture says that, and they say to him, "Teacher, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not?" Which means, should we pay taxes to Rome or not? Now, this could have really trapped Jesus, again, because of these two political factions we just talked about. He was going to upset one or the other. But Jesus, I like to think he maybe took a moment and said, "Bring me a coin." And then he asked a question, and this is a really key way, and we'll talk about this. We were talking about answering questions, but one of the key values we can hold is asking questions, right? When we feel we're in a very difficult situation. And he did that. He asked a question, whose inscription, whose image is on this coin? And they said Caesar's. He said, well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. This is not only a brilliant answer, but it's a brilliant way for us to frame how we engage in the abortion conversation. From my experience, and I've been doing this work a long time, we've given too much to Caesar. We've given too much power to the government. We've given them too much time and attention thinking they are going to have the answer. We are a people who seek to follow Jesus, and if we believe that God values and dignifies all people equally, then we ought to have a kingdom response to this important issue that resembles him more than a political party. And so this is a challenge for us to really take it out of politics. And I say that with all the grace in the world. I don't think it's because we want to. I think it's just so divisive, and that's all we've been given. We stay in that framework. But now it's time to take it back and really have this kingdom response. And last thing I'll close with is I've been getting some questions even this week. What if we as Christians don't have the same shared values? Now, this is an interesting question, and it will come up in some of the question videos. But let me say this, in my experience, most Christians are desperately trying to hold this tension that they have of wanting to work for the dignity and welfare of both the woman and the child. Most Christians believe what we talked about, that God creates all life at some point during pregnancy, and we're responsible to sit with the weight and mystery of that. It's just that when we use political terms to describe our shared values, those get skewed into political rhetoric. And the other thing just happened to me, the opposite happened to me this week, which was someone misinterpreted my values because I didn't use political framing. That is how much in a rut we have gotten with this. And so really the only way to find out what shared values we do have with other believers is to take the conversation out of politics, stop using the divisive words that trigger each other, and really try to step back and think, what are our shared values as believers that we can have in common as we, all of us, whoever we're talking to, seek to follow Jesus? Thank you so much for being with me again today, and I would encourage you to watch the final framework video, which talks about our shared responsibility.